I'm Teresa Carraggio, and this is Third Paradigm. My topic today is Terry Wolfe spits on spirit. Terry Wolfe writes The Winter Christian, and he was interviewed recently on Geopolitics Empire. And that's where Matthew Crawford has also been interviewed. Gabriel of Libre Solutions Network had written to me that he had hoped that that would be opened up to a round table, because he thought that I would be a good addition to that. The interview focused on New Ageism, and he is looking at Gnosticism, theosophy, One-ism, Christ consciousness, lumping together all these things that are not fundamentalist Christianity and opposing all of them and looking at them as one big conspiracy. So I responded on that message board, and I wanted to relate that conversation here. Let's do this. The full comment thread will be at thirdparadigm.substack.com, and I'll be summarizing here. So Terry Wolfe responded to Gabe that he would love to have that kind of conversation, and Matthew responded that he would love to be a part of that. I wrote to him saying that Gabe had sent me there, and that my approach to a good argument is that it first needs to state the question and then define all salient terms within it. From the description, his approach juxtaposes biblical Christianity against every other theory of God, spanning millennium, continents, and cultures, and lumping them all together into one jargon soup. Even the term Christianity usurped both the definition of God and the concept of the Christ as a who rather than a what. It predisposes that the default is one person who God loved better than the rest of us put together. And that was a version of Christianity that I consider a personality cult. Religion should be a forum for asking the big questions, starting with our true relationship to one another. Not defining God first and only leaving our choice as believing in that version or none at all. I've done a decade of research on the Bible and have come to conclusions backed by facts and logic that challenge the existence of Jesus and posit the authorship of the Bible as an imperial psyop that destroyed the true Christianity of the Zealot Revolution, which was bringing down the Roman Empire. And I say, if you're looking for a real representation of an alternative and not a straw man jumble of spiritual psychobabble, I'd love to be a part of that roundtable. Terry answered, "You studied the Bible for a decade and still think it was written by the Roman Empire. You aren't qualified to have any discussion." I replied, "Oh, I studied it much longer than that. I went to Catholic grade school, high school, and college, entering as a religion major. I suspect I've studied it longer than you've been alive. It wasn't until after I was 55, and I'm 67 now, that I realized that it was a literary fiction, written for nefarious purposes. And at first I resisted that, and the evidence just kept coming in. Once I considered it seriously, it was irrefutable, which at some level you know, or you wouldn't be so afraid to debate it." Terry retorted, "Saying that you're Catholic, going to college for religion, and only realizing at 55 are all evidence that you have no clue what you're talking about. New Agers will say anything to promote their movement that has no name." I answered, "Another way of saying has no name is has no label. Once a label is attached, we're no longer talking about my ideas and yours concerning God. We're just pointing to authority figures as bigger or better. In a true exchange of ideas, you would define what you mean by Christianity and by New Age. Otherwise, we could both be defending something that isn't even what we think. I've never been a part of any movement and don't presume to speak for anyone else. Do you? It's hard for me to imagine telling someone they have no clue when I don't know what they think or what their evidence is. On my stack, I make a distinction between challenging ideas and attacking people. I welcome all of the former and don't allow the latter. So then I link a couple of episodes to show my research and say, when you have that roundtable with Matthew or others, there are rules that go back to ancient Greece for discussing ideas without rhetorical tricks. Terry did not respond to that. Further down in the comment thread, there was someone named Carol who wrote, "This interview insulted my intelligence. I am 69, never called myself a Christian, like to explore different ideas, do not like fundamentalism of any kind. The conversation is so mixed up and the examples are so way off. Usually the geopolitics is my go-to place." Terry rebuffed her with, "Which part offended you the most, condemning Hitler or saying that humans are not gods?" I wrote, "As far as I can tell, Carol, we may be the only women watching. It's interesting that Terry starts by saying some men wanted him to come be their pastor because their wives were getting suckered into New Age philosophy and they needed someone to argue back. I don't think Terry believes women have the intelligence to think for themselves, unless they agree with him, I'm sure. Curious, too, that he states New Ageism works by presenting false dichotomies, yet isn't that what he does here? If you're not a fundamentalist Bible thumper, then you must be a theosophist UFO flat earth no viruser. I guess now that conspiracy theorist has lost its punch, with so many of us claiming it proudly, he needs a new way to discredit people. And so Terry does the exact thing he's deriding, by lumping them all together. He also acts like you were offended, which is quite different than saying the interview insulted your intelligence. And then he accuses you of being a Hitler supporter or thinking you're God. It's telling that more than half of the comments he hasn't liked. Terry counters, "The majority of my audience is female and would laugh at your weak smear attempt." I agreed. I have no doubt they would ridicule me. No one is as vicious towards other women as women who look to men for approval, as I've talked about often, and then cite one of my pieces. And only a woman who feels inferior to men would fall for a creation story that blames her for pain and death and ends with God's command to submit to her husband. Since the Bible is your authority, let me ask your thoughts on two of the many troubling reasons that I, with others, consider Yahweh to be a sociopathic creation of megalomaniac men. When Noah, backed by God, curses all the descendants of Canaan to be slaves in perpetuity to the descendants of Shem, how do you justify that? And when God orders the genocide of the Amalekites down to the suckling babe, is this the God you believe in? Terry quipped, "I love hearing from crazy New Agers who hate the Bible. Say it loud and proud." So I continued, "Terry, I'm asking you a simple question, and you're dodging it by throwing out insults. You can open your own Bible and read the story of Noah, yes? I'm not saying anything that isn't in there. I'm assuming you know the story of the Amalekites, right? If we agree that these stories are in there, then I'm not hating the Bible by quoting it, correct? The story of Noah's curse was used by slave owners as justification that Africans were the descendants of Ham, along with Egyptians, Arabs, and some Asians, according to Josephus. And so God intended them to be slaves. To kill a race of people down to the suckling babe is as extreme as genocide gets. Yet God is angry that they left one man alive. Are you saying that you weren't aware of these stories, or that you don't believe slavery and genocide to be sociopathic? I'm trying to engage in a discussion of ideas, and you just come back with insults. And he came back with, "My teacher has a saying, Do not give dogs what is holy, and do not throw your pearls before pigs, lest they trample them underfoot and turn to attack you. To which I closed, you just keep on doubling down, Terry, calling me a dog and a pig, no matter how much respect I give you as a person while arguing your ideas. And of course, there's no ego involved when you describe your thoughts as holy pearls of wisdom not to be wasted on someone who would crush them. By all definitions of verbal attack, this is what you're doing by calling me names. But you reverse it and say you won't answer my challenge to your ideas because then I would attack you. Is the author, the interviewer, in agreement with you on insulting people instead of discussing their ideas? Matthew and I share research, and he's interviewed me, and we talk sometimes with great mutual respect. I don't understand whether debating ideas using facts and research is something that is new to you, because no one actually does this in your world. You are, however, true to your hero Jesus, who calls the Canaanite woman a dog and refuses her the bread that's due to children, then says that even dogs can get the scraps that fall from the table. This shows a clear continuum from the story of Noah, where the Canaanites are cursed to be slaves. It's the morality of a slave owner class with which you identify. So I can see why it would be threatening to your worldview of superiority to have that challenged. In this, I feel like I'm a high school debate teacher who's trying to explain the concept, and I've got some football jock who's saying, yeah, and I'm not even going to answer you because I don't answer dogs. And his buddies are high-fiving him, and the girls in the back are saying, oh, isn't he so clever? Is this really what gets 1 billion views, 1 billion with a B, he clarifies, on some of his podcasts? I just don't understand this. Do people then listen to people they can relate to because they don't want them to be smarter than they are? Because I know for me, I only listen to people who I feel like I can learn something from. I listen to people who have the power to change my mind. I would never listen to someone who reiterates back what I already think, because what would be the point of that? I just don't understand that this is the concept of a discussion these days. That there is no facts, no logic, there is only hurling insults. In contrast to that, on Mary McLaughlin's stack, I've been having a discussion with Kathleen Devaney and Tonica of Visceral Adventures about RFK and whether this is really inspiring and he is someone who is a visionary and gives us hope. I don't agree with that, but no one is calling each other names. We're having a respectful and I would even say tender disagreement. Let me put on my glasses so I can read my notes. The interviewer lumps theosophy, New Age, Christ consciousness, One-ism, quantum spirituality all together because they're anti-Christ, and that's wrong. And of course, what he means by that is anti-Jesus. Then he cites David Icke and says that all conspiracy theory is rooted in Gnosticism, that Gnosticism is a flavor of New Age ice cream. It emerged right after Jesus, and it's a satanic worldview because it has an evil prison planet, and it explains the obsession with the Jews, and that it also gets into occultism and mysticism and the no germ theory and the flat earthers, that all of that is tied together. It's a false dichotomy trapping open-minded people into a camp with spiritualized science. This is a plan from the 1930s, and it includes Russell Brand and Kanye West. Terry states, where I see this all going is demonization of fundamentalists. More and more pressure from young people, especially females, because they target them with the love and tolerance and this idea that we shouldn't be discriminating, all paths to lead to truth, and they're valid. It's PC family-friendly notion that we're the tolerant ones, and those who don't go along with it are the intolerant ones. Tolerance will be the sledgehammer that destroys Christianity. And then he picks this random YouTuber, I guess a very popular one, I don't know, who says it's okay to murder if your intention is to understand murder. Then Terry says that she is typical of New Agers. We're all one, there's no distinction between me and you. She perfectly aligns with Gnosticism. You need a female priesthood, she says. This is what they all believe. So merging religions is satanic, he says, globalist, this coming age of unity, that you as a Christian can be holy by rejecting this evil. We're being targeted, he said, for extinction, but we win when we talk. Censorship will lead to martyrdom, imprisonment, purging, just like Jesus, but embrace it. And then the interviewer says that conformity is pressure that's put on Christians. And Terry says, yes, we need to step up our discernment. Think for yourself. Avoid this inner circle stuff. We know the truth. So, to go back to my role as a high school debate teacher, what Terry is doing is a straw man argument when he picks some random YouTuber who says that murder is okay and says, oh yes, she represents all New Agers. And then his guilt by association when he lumps everything together. And it all goes back to theosophy, and Hitler was connected to theosophy. I didn't even try to debate that part of it, but then he goes into all of the different things that are a conspiracy, that this is one agenda that we are all a part of, and we are supporting that idea of unity and that idea of one globalist world government, rather than debating these ideas. And the interviewer, who goes by Geopolitics and Empire, is okay with Empire if it's Christian, because everything else is wrong. So rather than defining Empire and looking at the techniques of Empire, which do go back to the church, and they distance themselves from the church and blame things on that, but they're not even debating the Bible. This is such a confusion of not looking at the ideas, not being willing to examine what it is that you think, because it is a dogma, it is a belief, it's deciding what it is before you even look at the evidence. And that is always going to be based on authority. And I think that we need to get beyond that and start talking about ideas. And if you'd like to be part of the debate team, here is how to have a better argument. And this is my playlist on scriptures and empire with 23 videos with evidence. Thank you for watching.